everyone, my name is Micah and thanks for visiting my channel. So what I want to do today is first of all wish everyone a belated happy Mother's Day. This video is quite a bit late, but on actual Mother's Day I was in the UK, then I've been pretty busy, so I thought I would go ahead and do this video even though it's a little bit late. So just a funny story about Mother's Day this year is that on Mother's Day we were supposed to take a train from Inverness to London. It was supposed to be a straight through bit for 8 hours, but there was a rail strike. So instead we had to take like a bus that was like 4 hours to Edinburgh and then get another train, and the trains were really crowded because of all the cancellations. So it was a pretty wild Mother's Day, and I was so exhausted from that I wasn't even a little bit sad. I think I mentioned on another video that my mom passed away a few years ago. So Mother's Day can be hard, but it makes me appreciate my own mother even more now that she's gone. And so because of that, I wanted to do this video, and today we're focusing on 10 awesome moms in literature. And this can include biological mothers, it can include found family or mother figures. And the women I'm about to talk about in these videos, or in this video, they're not always the best characters, right? There's some of them could be really flawed, but they are a great mother or mother figure to another character in the story. So let's get started. So at number 10, we have Rhys-Anne's mother from A Court of Mist and Fury. Now this might seem like a bit of a controversial choice because we never actually meet Rhys-Anne's mother. She's already died like centuries before the events of the novel take place. But we hear about her throughout the whole series and how she really inspired Rhys-Anne to be the best person he could be and not focus on that violent nature of his father or the High Lords. And one thing that I just kind of thought about is that Rhys-Anne's mother was very kind to Rhys's friends, so Cassian and Asriel, who didn't have anybody to love them, and she became a mother figure to them. And in the world of Court of Thorns and Roses, ACOTAR, the idea of mates is that your mate exists so that you can have like the strongest child. And so Rhys-Anne's mother and father were mates, but it's not always physical strength. But because of Rhys-Anne's mother being so loving, she was able to give Rhys-Anne so many allies, right? She gave him Cassian, Asriel, and together they form like this trio that's super powerful and can't be messed with. So just I kind of like that idea that love can be just as powerful as like physical strength. And unfortunately, I don't think, and I've only read the series once, I haven't done any rereads yet, but I don't think she's ever named. Like, we don't get her actual name, we just know that it was, Rhys-Anne's mother. So it's kind of interesting that she's on this list when we don't even know her name. Okay, number 9 is Kate Murray from the Wrinkle in Time series. So the Wrinkle in Time series, the first book, it talks about how the Murrays, their father is missing, and they're not quite sure what to do. So Kate Murray at that point, even though you can see my cat's tail in the video there, even though we don't know what's happening with the father. So at this point, she's a single mother. Her husband is missing, and she's doing her best. But throughout the book, she really encourages her children to be inquisitive, to be caring. She's supportive. She's not the traditional mother. She wants them to be happy in all sorts of regards, and she's always looking out for their safety. And then in the last book of the series, it also focuses on her grandchild, so her daughter's child, and how protective she is. So I just love how she encourages her children to be, whoever they want to be as long as they're kind, and she encourages inquisitiveness and uniqueness. So I think that she's an awesome example of a awesome mom in literature. Okay, number 8 is 2 characters actually. It's Ruth and Idgie from the novel Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe. So I've always thought that these characters were definitely in a relationship. It never explicitly says it, but it goes all around it. The idea that they're in a lesbian relationship without actually saying. But they basically raise Ruth's son together, and Ruth, she's a little bit more traditional. She's more Christian, but she's a very strong woman, and she leaves an abusive husband to protect her child, and that's a sign of strength because, unfortunately, sometimes women want to do that, but they're not able to. So Ruth finds Iggy, which is like her kind of like ex-boyfriend's sister, and they basically raise Ruth's son together, and they really encourage their son to explore and be kind and be interested in different things. And Iggy likes to tell these fantastical stories, and they're just a really great couple. I think they're a couple, even though it's not explicitly stated. In my mind, they're a couple, and they're a really great example of a loving lesbian couple in like the 1930s South. So I think they're great role models for mothers. Number 7 is Marmee from Little Women. I'm going to be honest, this is mostly inspired from I think it was 2019 adaptation of Little Women with Laura Dern playing Marmee. But even in the book, in the movie, she's so gentle, she's so kind, but she wants her daughters to do whatever they want and be whoever they are, despite their gender in that time, in the time of the American Civil War. And, it kind of implies they're not like in poverty, but they're not very wealthy either. But she really wants her daughters to have as many opportunities as possible. And like in the movie, Jo, she's not sure whether she should, talk to Lori again and accept his proposal because she's lonely. Because she says she's lonely. And her mom says, well, that's not any reason to, marry someone. You need to marry for love and not just because you're lonely, because you feel like you need someone to support you. And that's, for that time period, that was a pretty radical statement. But it's showing that she wants her daughter to be happy versus just wanting her to fit the societal norm or be a social outcast. She wants her children to be the fullest version of themselves that they can be, and she teaches them about patience and loving each other, even though that can be hard. And I think she's a really great inspirational role model for a mother. All right, number 6. This one's a little controversial because this author is not a good person. So I'm talking about Molly Weasley from the Harry Potter series, so by J.K. Rowling, who is very transphobic. And these other books, I'm saying, yeah, go ahead and read them, experience them for yourselves. Not really promoting the Harry Potter series. When I was a kid, like many of us, I watched the movies, I read the books, and I enjoyed them. But looking at them from an adult perspective, you can see a lot of things that makes you go, ick. Not good, controversial. But let's talk about Molly Weasley, because when a lot of people think of an awesome mom in literature, despite all the scandal and controversy, she's going to pop into a lot of people's minds. So Molly Weasley is a great mother figure to Harry, who is our main character, okay? Because she has like 6 or 7 kids already, and it's, saying that her and her husband, they're not the wealthiest of people, but she provides for Harry when, maybe they don't have a lot of financial resources to do so, and she provides him with love that he doesn't get from his aunt and uncle. So for that, she is really a good mother figure. Now, she's not perfect, because it talks about how she mixes up her sons all the time, like she can't tell the twins apart. And then when, I think it's her son, it's either Bill or Charlie, it's been a decade since I've read these. One of her sons gets married to Fleur, and she's very much seen as like the toxic mother-in-law. So she's a flawed character, but for Harry, our main character, she shows him the love that he never got. And if you kind of think about it in her perspective, so James and Lily Potter, Harry's parents, she knew them when they were like 18, 19. I think she's a bit older than them. But, she saw this young couple get together and have a kid at such a young age, and then she saw them die at such a young age. And they were her friends. They were fighting against Voldemort together. So, she has this, like, it kind of reminds me of, you pick your friends for a lot of reasons, but as I've gotten older, the people I have in my life, I'm like, okay, if for some horrible reason, say I have a kid and then, I pass away, I would trust the people who I call my friends to look after my kid and also to, teach them about me, make sure my memory's kept alive. And I would do that for my friends' kid, or for my friends' children. So that's kind of what reminds me of is showing the love to your friend's child because they can't be there to do it and kind of keeping that memory alive for them. So that's why she's on my list. All right, number 5 is going to be Louise from How to Sell a Haunted House. So now we're in the genre of horror. And so what this book is about, it's about a woman named Louise and her parents die. And she has to settle, her parents' affairs with her brother, who she's estranged from. And, as you can tell by the title, I am not spoiling anything, but the house is haunted and they have to deal with some truly horrific things. So Louise is a great mother because throughout the book, her whole motivation is to protect her daughter Poppy. Like at first, when her parents dies, and even the things she does, maybe they don't always work out or they're smart things to do as a parent, but she does have the motivation of love, even if she makes the wrong choice. But all parents do that. Like at the beginning, after her parents die, she mentions how her parents never told her about death and how it messed her up. So she wants to explain to her daughter what death is and that her grandparents are gone. Her daughter's 6, and it doesn't go very well. Her daughter kind of has a little bit of, I don't want to say a breakdown, but it doesn't go very well. But she did that because she wanted to make sure her daughter was as educated as possible. And she does, every decision she's like, I don't want to be manipulative like my mom was. Like that's her whole motivation. And then at one point, she just, she really can't stand her brother. And she's like, I want to go home. I don't even care about the money. And then she's like, well, the money that I could get from this, I could pay for my daughter's education, things for my daughter. So she goes back to the house as motivated by her daughter's like financial success and everything. And, horrific things happen. So she endures a lot of physical and emotional trauma throughout her daughter and does some really brave and scary things to protect your daughter. So I'd say she definitely deserves to be on this list. All right, number 4 is Aunt Manya from the Small Rain series. This is from the same author who wrote A Wrinkle in Time. So Manya is so the main character. Her name is Catherine, and she's kind of raised in like the 1930s in that bohemian. Like both of her parents are one is a composer, one is a pianist, and they're in that very bohemian 1930s, 1920s like artist New York culture. So Aunt Manya. So how the story is that Catherine's mother was in a really bad car accident and she wasn't really able to play the piano anymore, and that caused a lot of strain in her parents' marriage. Manya was a friend of both of them, and then Catherine's mother kind of went away, kind of like being depressed, having a breakdown, and eventually, unfortunately, her mother dies, and Aunt Manya marries her father, becoming her stepmother, and so while her mother is away, Aunt Manya just raises her because her father and her mother aren't very stable in the way we would look at stabilities. Like they're very that artist stereotype. They're very, they're not reliable. They're not around. And so Manya really raises Catherine. And, once Manya and Catherine's father get married, Catherine is very understandably upset. But Manya just, fights it with love, teenage daughter with a new stepmother, all of us can imagine how that'd be. But she really shows her love, and even though she's not, for a lot of the books, she's not related to Catherine at all, she is what I would say her main parental figure, the one who is control of her, who is the one in charge of her basic needs, as well as her emotional needs. And she provides her a lot of love. And then in the second book, it's set many, many years later when Catherine is an old lady. So it's like 70 years later. And she's still, she's reflecting towards the end of her life and a lot of moments with her Aunt Manya come up to her. So I've always really admired that character and just how she took on Catherine and just loved her. Even before she was with Catherine's father, she just took her on and she loved her. All right, number 3 is Juliet from the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. So maybe a lot of you have seen the movie, but I am focusing on the book, and the book has quite a few differences. So in the book, Juliet, she goes to this island and she starts writing this book about this book club and the occupation on the island of Guernsey during World War II. And there's this one child, her name is Kit, and the gist of it is she's basically orphaned, and the members of the book club knew her parents, and she kind of switches back and forth between people taking care of her. But Juliet starts to get to know Kit, and she decides she wants to adopt her, and she really opens herself up to this love and this vulnerability, and Kit becomes very important to her. Like, she has this boyfriend who comes visit her, and he's a little bit pompous, and she's not quite sure how she feels about him, but then he says something like, this kid's not your responsibility, you shouldn't get attached, and then that's when she breaks up with him because she makes that decision that Kit is going to be in her life. And Juliet, she's young, she's a writer, she could be at what you can consider like her heyday or whatever, but she really just falls in love with this girl, and she wants to take care of her in whatever capacity she can. And it's that, like, if you don't like my kid, then you're going to have to get out of my life. So I really admire that about her. All right, number 2 is Rosa from the Book Thief. So Rosa is Liesel's adopted mother, kind of like the foster care system, and never says whether she formally adopts her. But they're a family that is in Nazi Germany, so in the 1940s. And Rosa's very stern, but she's also very brave and very loving. And she teaches Liesel, because in a lot of things that they do could get them in trouble, like they hide a Jewish man in their basement. And, Rosa, it's part of her that she's like, our whole family could be taken away. This could be, more trouble than it's worth. But she does it. And I think that teaches Liesel that it's okay to have reservations. Like a good person doesn't have to always be 100% altruistic. They can be like, well, this could really bite us. But she does it anyway. She's kind. She, sacrifices her food for this man. And she takes in Liesel. Now, originally, she's like, very obviously, it's for the pension part, but she shows her a lot of love and care. So she's a very complex character, and, obviously, there's always that reservation. She's someone who's in Nazi Germany, so she's not, they glorify sometimes, as they should, people who stood up against the Nazis and did different things to show, it wasn't all Germans. But Rosa is flawed, but she still does those good things, even if she's like, this is a bad idea. I don't want to do this, but I'm going to. And even though Rosa never says, like, hey, I love you, Liesel, I'm so glad you're my daughter, it's, it's very clear through the narrator's point of view that she has a love in her heart. And even though she might not express it through words, she does through actions. So that's definitely a great adoptive found family mother. And then the last one, this would be Mrs. Frisby from the children's book, Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of Nimh. Now, I'm probably going to accidentally call her by the wrong name, because if you've ever seen the movie, her name is Mrs. Brisby. But in the book, it's Mrs. Frisby. So this character is actually a mouse, fun fact. And so what happens is her son, Timmy, gets very sick. So she has to go talk to the rats and Nimh who have been experimented on, and so they're super intelligent, to help her save her son. And she goes through a lot of stuff. She has to really, because it talks about how scary the world would be for a mouse. How many predators there are. There's the cat, there's birds. All sorts of things have to worry about, getting run over by the farmer's tractor. So it's really, a lot of the book is her describing, like, every time she goes out into the fields, like, there's always like 10 ways she could die. So she has to overcome all of those things. She has to use some bravery. She has to talk to the rats who she's scared of. She goes sees an owl. Obviously owls eat mice, so she's terrified of that. And eventually she gets like captured. Well, she gets caught by the farmer's son and put in a cage, and she has to overcome that. She has to try to escape the cat that like ate her husband. So she overcomes so many things to make sure that her son is safe. So she's a really excellent mother and just bravery. And it shows that this is what almost like my mother would have gone through those links, and almost every mother I know in my life would have. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and this video was meant to just honor the amazing mothers that we see in literature and the amazing mothers or mother-like figures that we have in our life. So just thank you to all moms out there, or kind of mother-like figures, caregivers, anyone who shows someone that mother-like love. All right, thank you everyone. I hope everyone has a fabulous day.